So, even though things are technically, looking very good for the Vancouver Canucks, they have won 3 straight, all in extra time. They've come out with some goals, some power play markers. Jake DeBrusk is improving his trade value. Elias Pettersson and Filip Hronek are getting points. And you have the young guys contributing to the cause. You've got the guys that were traded for Quinn Hughes, all producing too. Big shoutouts to Ogren, Rossi, Zeev Buium, and even the other young guys like Kirill Kudryavtsev and Elias Pettersson. Even though it seems pretty good right now for the Vancouver Canucks, there are questions about the future. And a report from Nick Kypreos via Sportsnet.ca that suggests that there might actually be some conflict behind the scenes with this organization. I'm going to leave a link in the description to this article posted by Nick Kypreos yesterday on Sportsnet.ca, Real Kippers NHL Buzz, the latest notes on front office searches. I'm just going to take some time to read the first few paragraphs of this article, because if you know how Kipper does his pieces, he likes to do a whole bunch of various NHL news segments and then compile it into one article. But the opening few paragraphs on the Vancouver Canucks are very, very interesting. Still no word on where things stand regarding the future of the Canucks management team. Going into last weekend, President of Hockey Operations Jim Rutherford and GM Patrik Allvin were still awaiting word from owner Francesco Aquilini on their immediate future. As it appeared, Aquilini had yet to give either of them any assurances as he continues to weigh all his options. Plans still could include anything from a complete dismissal of both managers, keeping one, or kicking the can down the road and keeping both for another season, since they are under contract through 26-27. The latter seems unlikely, considering Rutherford and Allvin do not appear to be nearly as aligned today as they were when Allvin first arrived to Vancouver in 2022. Okay, now what? Wait a minute, what? We had just heard all this reporting from Rick Dhaliwal on Halford and Bruff, Donnie and Dolly, whatever. Maybe not necessarily reporting, but just this thought process. You think Francesco Aquilini wants to pay guys to not work for him? We've already spoken about this a bunch, but the Aquilinis and the Canucks sports and entertainment product seems like they've lost a bunch of money over the past few years, at least when it comes to some of their bigger investments like the Overwatch and the Call of Duty teams. We've known this for years that Aquilini wants to be able to maximize as much money as he is capable of maximizing, and paying guys to not work for him doesn't really align with that. Am I going to agree with this philosophy? Personally, no. But am I gonna accept the idea that that's probably going to happen and that it could be the determining factor that leads to both Allvin and Rutherford staying in the Canucks organization for another year? Yeah, I think a lot of us have no choice, really. But now, with Nick Kypreos going out there and saying that it's unlikely that both of these guys stick around because they do not seem to be aligned anymore, it does raise a few bells, doesn't it? If Aquilini does not find a solution outside the organization, there is strong speculation that he could dismiss Allvin, and that he could keep Rutherford, whilst promoting assistant GM Ryan Johnson. One of the major points of contention regarding the roster that was put together on Allvin's watch was its lack of pushback as the team sank to the bottom of the standings. No doubt Johnson's mandate would be to get heavier players who bring some edge to their game. If the Canucks do let go of Allvin, it sounds like the Minnesota Wild might have some interest in him. Allvin has a solid relationship with Wild GM Bill Guerin, built when the two worked with Pittsburgh at the same time. Allvin and Guerin were both seen as key up-and-coming figures in Pittsburgh's organization during their championship seasons. And might I remind you, Jim Rutherford was also a part of that too. Now, maybe that doesn't really need to be explored because we all kind of acknowledge the fact that Rutherford was the man behind the vision of the 2016-17 Penguins that was winning all those cups back-to-back. But thinking about it now, hearing this idea that Patrik Allvin, should he depart the Vancouver Canucks organization, he could be heading to Minnesota to be promoted to some sort of a scouting role or what have you in that organization, it almost seems like a thank you from Minnie, right? It's like, oh, well, shucks. Thank you, Patrik Allvin, for giving us the opportunity to grab Quinn Hughes. We're going to repay you by giving you a job here. And then Jim Rutherford might have his own thing going on in Vancouver, which apparently does not seem to be all too aligned with what it is that Allvin wants. You could already debate that there might have been some hints here and there if these guys were even on the same page to begin with, when you consider the fact that Jim Rutherford was the guy that did the Quinn Hughes trade. Patrik Allvin's the GM. He's supposed to be doing all the moves that generally manage the Canucks. But according to Rutherford, it's like, oh, well, Patrick's got a lot on his plate, so I stepped in and I did this trade. I executed the biggest trade the Vancouver Canucks have made in 20-something freaking years. I was the guy that did that because the general manager was too busy with other stuff. Like, something about that does not click in my mind in the ways that it should. And even with Bill Guerin going out there and speaking in the media like, oh yeah, I called Patrik because I wanted to talk to him about Quinn Hughes and the idea of him getting moved, and then they referred me to Jim, and then I just talked to Jim, and then we worked it out. It's like, oh, well, even the NHL GMs of other teams are openly admitting that Patrik Allvin seemed to have never had authority to do the Quinn Hughes trade negotiations, and I don't know necessarily if that's a good thing, right? Like, do you want to see an NHL team where the president is doing all the big moves and is being the main factor that chooses who stays and who goes? The GM is not really doing his own thing, it seems. I understand that a president's role is there to manage the relationship between the organization and the fans and the media, and he should be the head of the group. He should be there for guidance and to be able to turn to when things get tough. He should be the calming force above all that allows people to do their jobs properly. Not necessarily a guy who does the general managing job in place of the general manager. Like, that doesn't seem right to me. I don't know. So hearing this Kypreos report that, oh yeah, they don't seem to be on the same page anymore, it really does get my gears turning internally as to what could be for the Vancouver Canucks. What kind of relationship could be put at the helm of this franchise for the next few years? I mean, Patrik Allvin leaving, going over to Minnesota. We already heard from Kypreos earlier this month that he was hearing from folks around the block that Patrik Allvin was telling people in his personal life that, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be back. I think I'm going to get fired. But then we quickly heard from Darren Dreger like, oh no, he's actually okay. He'll be sticking around, and they're confident that he's a guy that can help them win and whatever. So how much of that really is just Canucks ownership expressing an interest to continue with this individual and his vision of what the team should be? How much of that is ownership just straight up saying, yeah, well, we don't want to pay another guy. We don't want to fire this guy. He's got another few years left in his contract, and then we're going to pay him some more. And then we're going to hire another guy and pay another guy too on top of that. Like, we already experienced some money with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson thing, and then there was the Luongo thing, and then there was all these other things, and we bought out this and we bought out that, and now we're going to buy out this other guy, and we're going to fire Boudreau, and we're going to pay him, and we're going to pay Tocchet, and whatever. Like, it doesn't seem like the thought process that the Aquilinis would go through to make a change at the managerial level that puts them in a financially deficient scenario. That's just what it seems like to me. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about the Nick Kypreos update here, that apparently Allvin and Rutherford might not actually be on the same page, and whether or not that strikes a chord in your psyche of what this team is and should be. Let me know in the comments all your opinions. The article's going to be linked in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.